Okay, let's unpack this. We've got a stack of sources here, all focusing on one specific day, May 28th, 2025.
Right. These come from Tarot by High C,
Mm-hmm.
and they give us a few different angles, astrology, tarot symbolism, and even a little story.
Exactly. So today we're doing a deep dive into these sources. We've got the astrology of the day, a TarotScope that zooms in on the hawk symbol.
And the story scope, which is called the flight of Aenya. Our goal really is to pull out the most um, crucial insights from all of these for you.
Think of it like getting a multi-layered preview of the day's potential energy and messages, all according to these specific interpretations.
Yeah, a shortcut to understanding the vibe. And when you look at them together, a few themes really pop out, don't they?
They really do. There's this definite push and pull between optimism, high hopes, and then maybe needing to face reality.
Uh-huh. And this strong message about gaining perspective, like
Yeah.
literally rising above the immediate situation.
And tied into that, there's a lot about trusting your intuition, paying attention to signs, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. Those three ideas, balancing your outlook, getting perspective, and watching for messages, they really feel like the core across everything. So maybe let's start with the astrology, the overall flavor of the day.
Sounds good. What's the general forecast according to the astrology of the day source?
Well, it suggests the day might kick off with some really strong enthusiasm, maybe big plans or high hopes.
Okay, starting strong.
But there's a caution that this initial burst could potentially, bump up against reality as the day goes on.
Ah, the crash into reality bit.
Exactly. The source points out that you actually need both optimism and a grounded view. But finding that sweet spot, that balance between them, might be, well, the day's challenge.
So expect maybe an energetic shift, potentially. Need to navigate that.
That seems to be the idea. And the upfront advice for dealing with that dynamic is pretty clear.
Yeah.
Make space to rest, to nest, maybe allow some quiet time alone, and really tend to your emotional needs.
Interesting. So even if the energy feels big initially, there's this underlying need for self-care and emotional grounding.
Right. Self-care is definitely highlighted.
Okay, let's break that down a bit more. The source mentions different times of day. What's driving that big morning energy you talked about?
So the morning section highlights a Gemini moon conjunct Jupiter. Now, conjunction means alignment, and this specific pairing moon and Jupiter in Aries Gemini is, well, strongly linked to optimism, faith, feeling expansive.
A desire for new experiences.
Yes, exactly. The source says this aspect can really spark inspiration, making you want to follow your wildest dreams right at the start of the day.
Okay, wildest dreams. That definitely explains the strong enthusiasm. But you mentioned a shift happens.
Yeah, by midday, the moon moves out of Gemini and into Cancer, and that's quite a shift in feeling.
From air to water, right?
Right, from that expansive, ideas-focused Gemini energy to the more um, emotional, nurturing, security-focused energy of Cancer.
Ah, so the focus turns inward.
Pretty much. It shifts towards emotional security, maybe family, home, and definitely self-care. The source suggests that during this midday period, you might get a clearer sense of your deeper emotional needs. Maybe your intuition feels stronger.
And you know better how to look after yourself, or maybe others too.
Exactly. It connects back to that advice about resting and nesting. It feels like this is when that need might really surface.
Okay, so from big dreams to deeper feelings, how does this set up the afternoon? Because you mentioned potential tension.
Right, the afternoon is where things get a bit more complex astrologically. The Cancer moon forms what's called a square aspect to both Saturn and Neptune.
And square usually means challenge or friction.
It does. It
Mhm.
creates tension. Here, the tension is described as balancing that Cancer moon's desire for comfort and emotional security
With what?
with the demands of work, responsibility to Saturn, and also with the energy of Neptune, which can be about intuition and inspiration, but also sometimes confusion or blurring the lines of reality.
Okay, so the cozy Cancer vibe meets Saturn's get-to-work energy and Neptune's potentially foggy influence. That sounds like where that optimism might hit the reality check.
That's a good way to put it. It's that potential collision point.
So what's the advice for navigating that specific tension?
The source suggests looking for ways to um, merge things. Take those brilliant ideas from the morning, perhaps.
The Moon-Jupiter inspiration.
Yeah, and try to connect them with practical structures. That's the Saturn part, while also tapping into your intuitive wisdom. That's Neptune. It's about integration.
Okay, trying to bring it all together. Is there any really specific advice given for that afternoon part?
Yes, there's one key line. Hear everything out for now and make binding decisions later.
That's crucial. Don't commit when things feel mixed up.
Exactly. It acknowledges that things might feel conflicting or unclear, so the advice is basically gather information, listen, observe, but hold off on locking anything in.
That feels like really practical advice. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. We've got the cosmic map. Now let's bring in that symbol from the TarotScope, the Bohr K. What role does the hawk play here?
The HOK is presented as like the key symbol for guidance on this day. Its core message is all about gaining clarity,
Clarity, okay. How?
specifically by rising above, getting out of being tangled up in the immediate emotion or the messy details of a situation.
Like getting a bird's eye view.
Precisely. The source says the truth becomes visible when you're willing to elevate your perspective, get above that emotional noise.
That really echoes the astrological theme of balancing things, almost needing to detach a bit to see clearly. What does the hawk suggest we do?
He gives some specific actions. First, really pay attention to omens and synchronicities.
Signs and signals.
Yeah, things that feel like little messages just for you, not just random occurrences.
What kind of things should you look out for?
The source mentions stuff like, overhearing a snippet of conversation that feels weirdly relevant, or seeing repeating numbers, maybe significant dreams, or just those sudden gut feelings, moments of strong intuition.
Okay, so be observant of the outside world.
And, crucially,
Yeah.
trust your instincts. The source specifically says your inner knowing is likely to be sharp. So listen to that internal compass too.
Look outward, listen inward. Got it. Anything else from the hawk?
Yeah, it also emphasizes detaching from emotional clutter, consciously rising above the daily distractions and looking at the bigger picture.
That higher vantage point again, it keeps coming up.
It really does. So if you find yourself, say, wrestling with a decision, or feeling unsure about someone's intentions, or just bogged down in the weeds,
The hawk says, step back.
step back, get high, look down, see the whole landscape. It's presented as a really powerful way to navigate that potential emotional turbulence the astrology hinted at.
It feels like the hawk gives us the strategy for dealing with the day's energy. Now let's bring in the third piece, the story scope, with the flight of Aenya. How does this story weave into these themes?
So this story introduces Aenya. She lives in a village, and she's feeling weighed down by all the everyday worries. The crops aren't doing well, couples are fighting, merchant's daughter has gone missing, that kind of stuff.
Sounds familiar. Easy to get lost in the daily grind and anxieties.
Totally. But Aenya feels this like inner pull, this longing for something more, a higher understanding. She feels restless.
Okay, so what does she do?
Well, one morning, she follows this feeling and goes out to some ancient stones near the village.
Yeah.
And there she sees a lone hawk circling way up high.
Ah, the hawk appears in the story too.
It does. And she looks up at it. And the story says she essentially asks it to show her what it sees, which she's missing from down on the ground.
And then something happens, like the hawk's message about rising above.
Exactly. The story describes it as a spiritual lifting. She feels herself rising metaphorically, getting that higher perspective above the forest, the river, the village houses, even above the heavy hearts of the people below.
Wow. So she gets that elevated view. What does she see from up there?
It wasn't just a vague feeling. It was about seeing the underlying patterns. The source says she saw lines of energy, the truth hidden behind people's words, the order within the apparent chaos.
Specific things.
Yes, very specific. From that height, she saw that the missing merchant's daughter wasn't lost, but was actually hiding in the healer's den. And she saw the reason the crops were failing wasn't just bad luck. The water source upstream was being poisoned.
Whoa, so real tangible truths revealed just by shifting perspective. What happened when she, came back down to earth?
Well, the hawk was gone, but it had left a single feather behind. And Aenya picked it up and took it back to the village.
And did she share what she saw, even the difficult stuff?
She did. She told them about the daughter, about the poisoned water. And the story makes a point of saying these were truths some people didn't want to hear.
I bet. How did they react?
Some turned away, didn't want to know. But others, and the story calls them the quiet watchers, the ones who saw signs in clouds and heard messages in the wind, those people stepped forward. They listened, and they were ready to act.
That's powerful. The ones already attuned to signs were the ones who got it. Did things change in the village?
They did eventually. The story says that because of the clarity she brought back, the poisoned water issue was addressed, lies were untangled, and peace was restored. It all stemmed from that higher perspective.
And how does the story wrap up?
It ends with Aenya often watching the sky for the hawk, understanding now that some spirits, some messages, ride unseen currents, carrying guidance for those who are actually ready to listen and perceive them. It ties the perspective idea back to the signs and intuition theme.
It really brings it all together. Does the source give like a specific moral to this story?
It does, quite explicitly. It says, when you rise above the fray and trust the signs sent to you, clarity follows. The world's patterns are there for those with the eyes and courage to see them.
Eyes and courage. That adds another layer, doesn't it? It takes bravery to actually look from that different angle or face the truths you might see.
Definitely implies it's not always easy.
Okay, so let's pull all three strands together now. We've got the astrology mapping out this potential journey from high hopes to facing reality.
With that tricky afternoon tension.
Then we have the hawk offering a strategy. Rise above, detach, look for signs, trust your gut.
Right, the method.
And Anya's story vividly illustrating how powerful that strategy can be, how rising above reveals hidden patterns and truths that lead to solutions. So, synthesizing all that, what are the absolute key takeaways for you, the listener, thinking about May 28th?
Well, the main thing seems to be acknowledging that you might feel pulled in different directions on this day. High hopes clashing with, practical stuff.
And the advice isn't to pick one, but to navigate the balance.
Exactly. And how you navigate seems crucial. Both the hawk and the Aenya's story are practically shouting, get perspective.
So the question for you is, where in your life might you be a bit too close to something, a decision, a relationship, a problem, to see it clearly?
The invitation from these sources is to consciously try and step back, elevate your viewpoint somehow, detach from the immediate emotional charge.
And while you're doing that, keep your eyes and ears open, right? The sources are really strong on the idea that signs are available.
Definitely. And little coincidences, things you overhear, or just that nagging feeling inside. The question is, are you open to noticing and trusting those messages?
Yeah, and maybe thinking about that potential flow of the day, the optimistic morning, the inward turn midday, that afternoon tension.
Yeah.
How can knowing that help you follow the advice to hear everything out but decide later?
Yeah, awareness itself is a form of perspective, isn't it? It helps you maybe not get swept away by the shifts.
It feels like it's about being proactive, seeking clarity, trusting the nudges, rather than just reacting to whatever the day throws at you. These sources seem to offer a kind of roadmap from potential confusion to hopefully a more grounded understanding.
And the map relies on changing how you look at things and what you choose to pay attention to.
So just to crystallize those core insights again from Tarot by High Seas interpretations for May 28th.
Okay. The day holds energy for both big optimism and needing to deal with reality. Navigating this dynamic successfully, finding clarity.
It comes down to actively seeking that higher perspective, detaching from the immediate emotional swirl.
And trusting the signs in your own intuition when they pop up.
And remember, these insights are drawn from the astrology of the day, TarotScope, and StoryScope for May 28, 2025, all from Tarot by High Sea.
If you want to explore more of High Sea's work, maybe look into their other offerings or schedule a reading, you can find them online at tarotbyhic.net.
That's TAROT by HIC.net.
And as that moral from Anya's story highlighted, the patterns and truths are often visible.
But it takes willingness to rise above the noise and maybe that bit of courage to really see them.
So the final thought to leave you with, thinking about May 28th, what patterns might you gain clarity on if you're willing to shift your perspective and really look?